Hello, everyone. Welcome to the very first seminar in our brand new Elite Prep webinar series, Understanding College Admissions in 2021. So here with us to talk college admissions is a man with more than 25 years of experience helping students get into their top choice colleges, Elite Prep Regional Director Henry Kim. And our first topic that we're going to be talking about is college admissions has changed. What should I be doing now? And judging from the number of you that signed up and are participating in this webinar and the number of questions we received, this is definitely a topic that's on the minds of many students and parents right now. So we want to get to as many questions as we can today. My name is Jason Vanderbrake. I'm Elite Prep's Director of Online Communications. I am super excited to be here with you all today. Just a couple of brief things before we start. This is as I said, this is the very first in our Understanding College Admissions in 2021 webinar series. And just today, we posted links to register for all of the rest of that webinar series over the next few weeks. You can find those at eliteprep.com/webinars, or just go to eliteprep.com, look for the big yellow bar on top of the screen, and you can click that, and that will take you to them all. You can register for all of our webinars that we have coming up. Very excited to share those with you. We've got a whole bunch of great topics happening, like next week, Tuesday, unconventional ways to boost your GPA over the summer. The following Tuesday, the new role of standardized testing, like tests like the SAT and ACT and college admissions, and then a few more again after that. So again, just go to eliteprep.com/webinars to register for those. And while you're there, you might also realize that we're presenting each week's topic in English as well as Korean and Chinese. So on Tuesdays, we're going to be having our English webinars. And then on Thursday afternoons, we're going to be having, or Thursday evenings actually at 6 o'clock, we're going to be having our Korean and Chinese version. So if you're a Korean or Chinese speaker, or you know anybody who is, tell them about our webinar series, tell a friend, share the love. Also quickly before I hand things over to Henry, I want to just mention a little bit about our summer courses at Elite. We have a huge variety of extremely exciting programs for students in grades 5 through 12 this summer, starting in June. So for students, historically, Elite has been very well known as a test prep, SAT prep, ACT prep, AP, things like that. And we definitely still offer those programs, but we have expanded them just immensely. So for students who need a big boost in their GPAs in a hurry and who want to make the most of their summers, we're offering AP courses for credit, as well as dual credit college courses, both online and in person at our Elite branches. So in just 8 weeks, you can add a really impressive class to your transcript and raise your GPA in a hurry. Also for students who are looking to add some impressive extracurricular activities, which are kind of the key to getting into your dream school, extracurricular activities that you can brag about on your college applications. We've got an incredible selection of, I think, 15 different extracurricular programs and workshops happening over the summer that are open to students everywhere. Those are going to be taking place online. So, just a couple of technical notes before we start. On this webinar, you can see and hear us, but we can't see or hear you. So please do feel free to ask questions using the Q&A button on your screen. If your question isn't answered, don't worry. You're welcome to contact your local Elite Prep branch, and a branch director or one of our counselors will be happy to help you out. So let's get started. Without further ado, I will hand it over to Regional Director at Elite Prep, Mr. Henry Kim.
Thank you, Jason. Hello, everyone. My name is Henry Kim. I'm the Regional Director of the Arcadia, LA, San Gabriel area, and the San Diego region currently. I'm currently at the San Diego branch. And I have a lot of experience, like Jason said. I've been in education for the last about 30 some years now and been doing college consulting for the last 25. This year was an odd year. So because of COVID, there was a lot of different things that occurred this year that really affected the overall college admissions. And I've been getting a lot of questions from students and parents alike asking, what's changed? Okay, what do I need to do now? So I wanted to kind of share that with you if I can today. Okay, so let's start the presentation. And like Jason said, if you have any questions, you can use either the Q&A button or the chat button, and we'll try to answer questions as they come in. But at the end of the webinar should take about 40 to 45 minutes. I'm gonna spend about 25 to 30 minutes at the end trying to answer every question that you guys ask. So please be patient. I will not be answering questions mid presentation. So if you ask a question, just be patient and I'll get to all of them towards the end, okay? All right, so let's start. So this is the part one of the webinar series that we'll be doing for the next, I think, 6 to 7 weeks, understanding college admissions in 2021. Today's presentation will cover college admissions has changed. What should I do right now? So just a little about me. I went to UCLA a long time ago. When I went to LA, the tuition was $1,491 per year. I think that's what you pay for books now, right? So it's changed a lot. I have 4 kids. One is in college. The other one is college bound this year. My youngest is in 6th grade. So I got a long ways to go. I'm sure a lot of you guys can kind of sympathize and, I can relate. So I've been with Elise since 1989. I can't believe it's been that long, but 1989. And over that time, I've consulted with thousands of students, and it's been my privilege to work with some of the most, motivated, smart, nice, amazing kids that anyone would have the pleasure of coming across. And that's basically me. So let's get into the presentation. What happened in 2021? Well, just going through some of the highlights. College Board eliminated the SAT subject exams. So SAT subject math level 2, biology. If you've taken the exams already, potentially you can use the scores. So we'll see what the applications look like this year. But moving forward, those scores are now moot, right? So you cannot take them anymore. So they're gone. So they're not coming back, they're gone. Colleges went test optional or test blind. The reasons why certain colleges went test blind and certain colleges went test optional, they're not the same. It's not because of COVID. So I'm going to discuss the reasons why that occurred. Early applications became very difficult this year. Now, it depends on which college, but the competitive schools became not just a little bit more competitive, but way more competitive this year. UC admissions went berserk. So I have never had a year where UC admissions have been so erratic. So I've had students get into MIT, Caltech, get rejected from LA and Berkeley. I had a student get into Caltech, was waitlisted at Cal Poly San Luis Obispo. It went berserk this year, right? So CSU admissions, like I said, was not that far behind. They went not completely berserk, but they went nuts. Let's just put it that way. The landscape of college admissions changed drastically this year. So let's get into this. The reasons behind test blind or test optional. So the reasons why UCs went test blind is very different from why the other colleges went test optional. So if you look at the ethnic breakdown at most UC campuses, this is not all UC campuses, but most UC campuses, white and Asian Pacific Islanders typically make up around 70% of the student body, right? So some campuses even higher. Hispanic and African Americans make up typically 20%, some campuses, again, lower. And international and other races make up around 10% or lower of the overall student population. Now, this is what the UC campuses, most UC campuses look like ethnically. But this is how California as a state breaks down. According to the 2019 American Community Survey, Latinos represent about 40% of the population. Whites represent about 36%. Asians and Pacific Islanders represent about 15% of the population. African Americans, 6%, others, the remaining 4 percentile. So as you can see, the UCs do not look like California. They look very different. So, it's been UC's mission over the last, well, it's been basically as long as it's existed, to get the UC campuses to look like California. So they felt that the ACTs and SATs were biased, that they were favoring a particular ethnic group over others. So they've been trying to get rid of the test for the longest of time. So what COVID did was it accelerated that process, right? So it gave them a reason to just go test blind completely. And they were test blind this year. They're going to be test blind next year. Most likely they'll be test blind the year after as well. We'll see what happens in 2024, but 2022, 2023, and this year, most likely UC campuses will be test blind. And the reason for doing so is they believe that going test blind will help them to diversify the UC campuses so that it becomes closer to what the actual state looks like ethnically. Right, so that's the reason why the UCs went test blind. They didn't go test blind because of COVID. COVID just accelerated that process, right? So, and is it wrong? Is it right? I mean, honestly, I mean, you can argue both sides of that argument, but the reality is this is what is happening, right? Now, the non-UC colleges went test optional mostly because COVID forced test sites to close, and students could not take the exam. So because they couldn't take the exam, they couldn't report SAT scores. So the colleges went test optional just in case students were able to take the test or they took it prior to COVID, so they can still use the exam scores. So what this basically means is as COVID kind of fades, hopefully, from our consciousness, right? And it becomes something in the past, UCs are not gonna go back to the tests. Right, so UCs are not going to reinstate the SATs or ACTs in any time soon. However, the non-UC colleges, as COVID is behind us, and students are able to take these exams, more frequently, and they're able to take it regularly in an organized kind of a predictable manner. Then, as 2021 closes and 2020 approaches next year, so this is for let's say rising juniors. It could be very possible that a lot of these colleges will go back to being either test optional or require the test altogether, right? So, so the reasons why the non-UC colleges went test optional and UCs went test blind are completely different. They're not the same. But however, colleges going test blind and test optional had a profound effect on college applications this year. Right, or last year. So, and it's going to have the same effect this year. Just simply put, students who applied last year for the class of 2024, they suffer from COVID from March till the time that they applied, which was what, like 6 to 8 months. Students applying this year suffered under COVID for the duration, almost 15 months. So, if you are a rising senior this year, most likely what happened last year is going to be most likely repeated this year. So the oddities that we saw last year in college admissions, the difficulties that we saw in college admissions last year, I do not believe will go away this year. Maybe the year after, but this year I think we're going to be under the same duress. Okay, so what happened? So one of the big things that we saw were changes in early application numbers, right? So this is a simple chart, and this doesn't include all the schools. Obviously, it's just a handful of schools. But students who applied to MIT early this year were caught very off guard. So MIT's early applications this year increased by 62%. Most of the Ivy Leagues experienced at least 30% increase in their early application numbers. Now, when you take that into account, along with the number of students that deferred from attending colleges last year. So what does it mean by deferral? So students who got into, let's say, Harvard in 2020, decided if I start my freshman year in September of 2020, then it's going to be online. I don't want that. I want to be on campus. I want my entire 4 years to be at Harvard or whatever college you're talking about. They decided I'm going to defer my freshman year. So they took a gap year. They took a year off. So they're going to be starting this year. So those numbers added with the additional early numbers put real stress on the applications that came in this year. Now, for the students who are going to be applying this year, at least they do not have to worry about the deferral numbers, right? Because most likely in August and September of 2021, when the class of 2025 starts their freshman year, hopefully they'll be on campus, and there will be no need for students to request, request the deferral for their freshman year. So hopefully in 2022, this will be completely behind it. But this year, at least you don't have to worry about that aspect of the application. So, students who applied to MIT early this year were very shocked. I had a handful of students who I was very confident would get in, and they were all waitlisted. It was shocking. So just looking at Ivy League examples. So what happened at Harvard, their restrictive early action acceptance numbers went down from almost 14% admissions to about 7.4%. It was halved. It was less than halved, right? And they had roughly 350 students who deferred last year. That's about 25% of the freshman class. So a quarter of the students who got into Harvard last year decided not to start their freshman year, like they would normally. And they're starting a year later, which is this year. Dartmouth ED, this is early decision, went down from 26% to 21%. So the early decision numbers were not affected as heavily as the early action numbers. They also had 172 students who deferred last year as well. So overall, the application numbers increased by a meaningful amount this year, not just through the Ivies, but basically through the top 20 colleges, right? So, and these were the admit rates. So Harvard's overall admission rate this year dropped to 3.4%. Columbia's dropped to 3.7%. Yale's dropped to, these are like margin of errors. They're not actual admission numbers to me, right? So when you say, what are my chances? It's 22% with a margin of error of 3%. That's how you would kind of statistically kind of tell students what your chances are. These are like margin of errors. These are just ridiculously competitive numbers, right? USC's admission dropped from 16% to 12% this year. UCLA went from 14% to 10.5% this year. We'll see what happens when all the waitlist numbers come back. But after the waitlists are all kind of settled, I think their admission numbers are going to settle into about 11%. So the fact that UC admissions are now bordering a single-digit number is almost ridiculous, right? Because these are public universities. They're supposed to be accessible to the public, but 10% is 1 out of every 10. That's not very accessible. So, but that's what's going on. So LA and Berkeley were particularly difficult this year. And if you applied to engineering at Berkeley this year, your chances were very, very small. Now, however, not most students are not looking at IB. So what happened elsewhere? So UC applications overall went up by 15%. So CSU applications for the very first time in decades went down by 5%. Now, you need to understand how CSUs are kind of structured. So there's 28 campuses across California. There's about, just like the UCs or most colleges, there's a handful that are very, very competitive, like Cal Poly SLO, Cal State University Long Beach, San Diego State University, Cal Poly Pomona, Fullerton, Fullerton University, Cal State Fullerton, and things like there's a handful that's competitive. Those schools experienced a surge. Their application numbers went up. So if you look at Cal Poly SLO, their application numbers actually went up by 4%. But schools that are traditionally non-competitive or not as hard to get into, schools like Cal State LA, Cal State Dominguez Hills, their applications went down by almost 20%. So when you combine them all, CSU applications went down by 5%, But the upper 4 or 5 colleges, they all experienced a slight surge. So when you look at the overall US News ranking system, and you look at the top, let's say 40 schools, the top 40 schools overall experienced about a 12% increase in their application numbers last year. Now, for the first time in 12 years, Common App, the number of students who used the Common application went down by 2%. Once again, Common Application basically hosts nearly 600 colleges, right? So if you look at the Common Application numbers, the number of applications that went to the top 50 schools increased dramatically. But the overall numbers to the other schools went down, which basically rounded out to the overall numbers being reduced by 2%. So what does this all mean? So what this basically all means is that competitive colleges are getting harder to get into. So these are the schools you guys all want to go to. I mean, if you're obviously in this webinar, right? So that means you're interested in getting into some of the better schools. Those schools are getting more competitive. And the schools that you might not consider as your first choice or second choice, they're getting easier to get into. So to put it easily, your reaches are getting harder and your safeties are getting easier. So less competitive colleges getting easier to get into. Emphasis is changing depending on your target. But so I'm going to go over that in a minute. But so is this going to continue? Like I said, I think for 2021, definitely this trend is going to continue. 2022, we'll see. But definitely for this year, I think it will continue. For rising seniors, like I said, it will continue. For rising juniors, we'll see. Only time will tell. It'll kind of depend on how we climb out of this pandemic and how the colleges kind of react. So for example, Governor Newsom announced that on June 15th, that the entire state of California should open up. But UC San Diego, which is down here in San Diego, and San Diego has not been affected by COVID. I wouldn't say at all, but it's been minimally affected. The cases have been very low. It has not really been severe. But UC San Diego as a whole, as a school this summer, they're still on lockdown. So basically, how this will affect schools will depend on how each individual colleges react as we kind of climb out of this pandemic. But like I said, only time will tell. Best thing you can do is to prepare as best as you can. So how do you prepare? So what are colleges looking for? So these are traditional, points that colleges look at when they're evaluating students. Number one, always most important, GPA. Your strength of schedule. So I have a 4.0 unweighted GPA, but I didn't take any AP classes. Well, your strength of schedule is not very strong. So that 4.0 might not carry the same weight as if you had an unweighted 4.0, but you took, let's say, 10 AP classes, right? So they're looking at GPA. What type of schedule did you have in relative to the classmates that you're applying to these colleges, with? Outside academic involvement, did you just take classes at school? Did you take classes outside of school because the courses that you wanted were not available? You want to be a doctor and you wanted to study microbiology, your school doesn't have it. Did you take it outside? What did you do, right? So all of that stuff is going to be looked at. They're going to still look at standardized tests. As subjects disappear, AP becomes more important. Schools that are test optional, SATs are still very important. UCs, you're looking at APs only or IBs. But just a handful of testing is now relevant for the UCs. But outside of UCs, the standardized tests are still very, very important. Activities, especially leadership. Did you just participate? Were you active? Outside letters of recommendations are very powerful if they come from the right people and if they say the right things. So if you just get one from, for example, a lot of you guys volunteer in political campaigns, and you get letters of recommendations from that campaign. Those letters of recommendations tends to be more like form letters. They're basically the same letters of rec that goes to everyone, that you participated in the campaign. but there's nothing really unique or specifically individualized, in terms of those letters of recommendations. So they tend not to be as, let's say, powerful, right? So, where did it come from? So outside letters of recommendations are very, very useful when they come from the right source. Personal statements. So this is where, these are the essays that you have to write, right? So that's your opportunity to take all the other things like GPA, strength of schedule, outside academic involvements, tests, activities, where the letters of recommendations came from, and you can highlight the areas that you want the admission officers to look at. So personal statements are extraordinarily important. So I'm going to discuss these one by one. So GPA, strength of schedule, and academic, outside academic options obviously kind of merge into one. So you need to understand that when you apply to a university, your GPA is not just a number, but it's a comparison of how you have done compared to your peers. So, right next to me, there's a school right next to me that's, I can literally yell at students. It's so close, right? So, and it's an extraordinarily academically competitive high school. So if you go to that high school and you have a 4.2 weighted GPA, even though 4.2 might sound amazing, not at this high school, right? So, so 4.2 is not just a 4.2. It depends on where it came from and how it compares to the students around you, right? So GPA is not just a number. It depends on how you got it and where it came from. So I would always recommend, so this is another question I always get, what classes should I take? How many APs should I take, right? So I always try to tell the students or guide them in such a way, try to take the hardest schedule possible without risking too many Bs, right? So it's okay if you have one or two Bs, but we don't want 4, 5, 6, 8 Bs occurring because you took too many APs or too many honors courses. The saying, I get this question a lot as well. Maybe in one of these Q&A, I'm sure this is going to pop up. Is a B in AP better than an A in regular, right? So is that true? Yes, it's true when the number of Bs are minimized. So if you are registered for 4 AP classes and you have a B in one of them, that's fine. That's better than if you took a regular class for that particular subject and you got an A. That's perfectly fine. But if you took 4 AP classes and you have 6 Bs, then no, the quantity is going to hurt you, right? So when colleges evaluate you, they look at both weighted and unweighted GPA. So we want both of them to be competitive and not just one. And then taking supplemental AP, dual enrollment, college classes can greatly improve your academic profile. And try to take classes in such a way that shows progression. So for example, let's say in your freshman year, if your school offers these courses, you're interested in programming. So in your freshman year, you took Exploring Computer Science. In your sophomore year, you took AP Computer Science Principles. In your junior year, you took AP Computer Science A, right? That shows a progression. And this looks wonderful. Another example is, let's say you take Introduction to Engineering. So this is one of the schools in my area. They offer this class. You take it in your freshman year. You took Advanced Engineering in your sophomore year, and you took Research Methods in your junior year. That looks great, right? Or you took Orchestra for all 4 years. You took Yearbook for all 4 years, or you were in ASB for all 4 years. So if you can take classes in such a way that it shows passion in that one particular subject and it shows progression, it always looks better than taking random classes just for the sake of filling in space in your overall schedule. And try to take challenging courses in the major that you're interested in. So one of the high schools in my area offers AP European History. It's called APEC, right? AP European History and Cultures. And that class is known to be the hardest class at the school. It basically, whenever I get students from that school and I go, how did you do? And they go, I had 2 Bs. I know where it came from. It came from APEC, right? So, and then I'll say, oh, what major do you want to pursue when you apply, when you go to school, when you go to college later on? They'll say, oh, I want to be a mechanical engineer. And then I'll say, why did you take APAC? It doesn't really have anything to do with your major. You know it's hard. And they'll just look at me and say, I don't know. I thought I was supposed to take it, or my friends were taking it. And they didn't give any thought to what they were really getting into, right? So it's not necessarily a bad thing to avoid courses that are not necessarily aligning with the things that you want to study if you know it's going to be hard and you know it's going to cost B's, right? So try to create that strength of schedule wisely so that it does look strong, but at the same time you minimize the B's. Standardized testing. So how is this? So SATs and ACTs, like I said, are no longer necessary for the UCs and the Cal States. So you don't need it. They're no longer going to use it for admissions. They're no longer going to use it for scholarships. So it is no longer necessary for those schools. SATs and ACTs are still optional for most top non-UC colleges, right? So whether it's University of Michigan, whether it's Duke, whether it's Vanderbilt, whether it is Georgetown, whatever the case might be, they're optional and they are still relevant. So I just put UPenn example here. I'm going to cover this a little bit more thoroughly later on, but UPenn released a kind of a, I don't know, what would you call it? Like a news bulletin, if you will, that this year, 65% of their applicants this year submitted SAT scores optionally, right? And 35% decided not to submit SAT scores. When they tabulated their acceptance, 87% of the students that were admitted to UPenn this year had SAT scores, whereas 13% did not. So even though 35% went test optional, they didn't submit a test, only 13% got in. And even though only 65% submitted SAT scores, 87% of those kids got in. So you read between the lines, right? And you can kind of see that at least at Penn, that they value the students who submitted scores. And you can kind of guess if they submitted scores, it was probably very high. So if you have a high SAT score, it can help you, right? So if you're applying to UPenn and you have a 1200, then you definitely want to hide it and you want to go test optional. But if you had a 1500 or above and you submitted it, that really helped you. So if you are targeting some of these top colleges and you're able to score in the high, in the 33, 34, 35, 36s on your ACTs or 1500s and above on your SATs, then it's worth pursuing. College Board has decided to remove the SAT subject test moving forward, which means AP exams will now be more important than ever, right? You're going to show subject proficiency, right? So another common question I get is, I took AP chemistry last year, got A's in both semesters, but I got a 2 on my AP test. Does that look good? And I'm like, what does that even mean? Does that look good? Of course it doesn't look good, right? So it's important that your AP scores are going to, it doesn't mean that you have to score 5s and 4s on everything, but if you can score high on majority of your AP exams, it will definitely help you, right? So it's going to be more important than ever moving forward. Activities outside letters of recommendations. Start early and show passion through consistency, right? So it's better for you to show robotics from 9th grade all the way to 12th than showing robotics as you joined in 11th grade, right? So a lot of these activities are team activities. So it's really hard to show individual accomplishments within team activities. So it's important that you kind of figure out early what you want to do and show consistency in that you're committed to that particular area of study or interest. And seek leadership, right? So don't just participate, be active, be vocal, and commit to it. Give your time, give your resources. And I think when you do that, typically leadership just naturally follows, right? And be unique. Another example. So there's a local high school in my area where their Cyber Patriot team is really, really competitive. They're really good. So whenever I interview students from this high school and they want to study like computer science or engineering, every single one of them is in Cyber Patriot. So not that Cyber Patriot is bad, but when you have 140 students in that particular club, and it's hard to make the competition team, you know, maybe you can use your time a little bit more uniquely, right? Maybe you can do a personal project. I just interviewed a student today. I asked her, what are you doing during the summer? And she's like, well, I'm going to do a personal project, using this and that. And it just sounded amazing, right? So try to be unique if you can. And pursue internship, academic accomplishments, publications. These things all really, really help. So these are activities that tends to have more of an impact on your application than other things. And widen your influence. So, don't try to just participate in activities that are just relevant to your school. Look to go outside of your school, right? Reach out to your community, right? So don't, let's say you're part of ASB and you're advocating mental health for your classmates through a mental health week at your school, which is terrific and wonderful. But can you take that and expand that out to the overall community so where people who are suffering from the same issue can receive help as well, right? So try to widen your influence as much as you can. So you're reaching out to as many people as you can, not just something that is comfortable and easy, and you're just kind of in your sphere of comfort, which is your high school, and that's all you're doing. Now, I understand that certain activities cannot go beyond your high school, and that's perfectly fine. But if there are certain activities that can go beyond your high school, I would really highly recommend that you pursue that. And then personal statements. This is where everything is tied up. So you can do something wonderful, something really great, and you loved it, and you found this so meaningful. But if you don't stress it on your personal statement, it just becomes a little line in your activities on your college application, and that's all it becomes, right? So this is where you get to determine the storyline of who you are, right? So as colleges become even more competitive, it's important that you present yourself in a unique, clear manner, and you need to tell a compelling story. So your applications, let's say you're applying to University ABC, and they're asking like 5 different questions, and there's 5 essays that you need to write. That is not an opportunity for you to write 5 disparate or completely separate essays. That's an opportunity for you to kind of unify them and tell a kind of a pointed, compelling story, so that you come off as someone that's passionate, unique, and you have a goal, right? So this is where that happens, right? So like I said, help you bring focus to your activities and better emphasize their importance to you. And then help you focus. This is where you focus your unique background. So if you have a unique ethnicity, if you're first generation college, you overcame a learning disability, you have your sexual orientation, or you overcame life challenges. I have students who have learning disabilities, and I find out later that they overcame this difficulty through some other means, not through their essays. So, and then when I find out, I'm like, why did you tell me this? Why aren't we not writing about this, right? And a lot of them feel like, well, I don't know, I feel uncomfortable. Aren't they going to look at me weird, or aren't they going to look at me as like I'm not qualified? And that couldn't be further from the truth, right? Colleges are looking for students who overcome, hurdles, overcome challenges, and they came out on top. It shows vulnerability. It shows that you're a person. So, this is where this is an opportunity for you to use your writing to kind of highlight these type of storylines that's unique to who you are. And at the same time, however, and this is where understanding how college applications work is very, very important. Not all college essay prompts look the same. So if you apply to Cornell's application, their entire supplemental essay is just one prompt. Depending on which college you're applying to, If you apply to the College of Engineering, their prompt is basically, you know, why do you want to study engineering, and why is Cornell the best place for you? That's the entire that's the entire prompt, and it is 650 words. So, you know, that's a very hard place to, you know, plug in like your learning disability or your sexual orientation. So some of these colleges, whether it's Cornell, Columbia, CMU, USC, and one of the UC prompts is like that, and many, many more. It's also important that if you can, not that all of your activities must relate to your major, but if some of your activities relates to your major and you can create a storyline that fits the area of study that you want to go into, is more powerful that way at certain schools. All right, so that's kind of what they're looking for, just in a nutshell. I mean, look, it's way more complicated than what I'm doing, but I don't have like 10 hours to explain everything, so I'm just explaining it in a simplified way, if you will. So what can you do to increase your chance at UCs? So what are UCs looking for, and what can I do? I would really recommend that you try to understand the application review process. The first thing you should do is go and look at the application, right? So what do they want? What's here? Oh my God, they want 20 activities. I only have 2, right? So try to figure out what are they looking for, right? Understand the process. By far as UCs are concerned, as far as most schools are concerned, GPA is the most important. You need to protect it. It's not only a number, but how the number came about. I keep on saying this, but the context of your GPA is very, very important. So you need to make sure that you're competitive, not just in the number, but in the difficulty of schedule and the pointedness of the classes that you've been taking, right? So if you are, let's say, if you're going to be a biology major, it'd be nice if you had AP Bio and AP Chemistry by the time that you apply, right? So things like that, right? And AP scores are very important now at the UCs. So as far as standardized testing is concerned, this is all they're going to see, right? And then if you go to like Troy or some high schools that have IB testing, so if that's the case, then the only scores you're going to be able to submit is AP and IB. If you don't know what IB is, just ignore it. It's fine, right? So if your school doesn't offer it, you don't need to worry about it. Readers are looking for evidence of resilience, persistence, drive, passion, and creativity. I didn't write this. This is straight off the UC guidelines. So this is what they're looking for. Have you been resilient? Have you been persistent? Do you have drive? Are you passionate? Are you creative? And if you're like, man, those 5 do not fit me, then you better organize yourself so that some of this, you fit into one of these like 5 categories, right? Because that's what they're looking for. What happened at UCs in 2021? So I'm going to go over some numbers. UCLA, their application, the number of applications they received increased by 28% this year. 28%. That's almost 1/3. They received 139,493 applications in 2021, right? For context, in the year 2000, UCLA received a total of 37,791 applications. 37,000. This last year, they received 139,000. That's an increase of more than 100,000 applications. And UCLA has not grown in size. The number of students that they can accommodate has not changed. Amid a 10.5 versus 30% admission rate in 2000. They use what's known as a 14-point factor review process. And all of those factors, some of the factors are very minimal, but that's what they use. GPA being the highest factor, and things like, you know, are you first year college admissions? Did you overcome life challenges? All of those things are used in a holistic review, but that's what they kind of use to kind of organize their thought process, right? And they're looking for a pattern of engagement. So what UCLA wants is someone who has an ideal of what they want, and they have fully thrown themselves at it, right? So they're looking for someone who is overly passionate. It doesn't have to be like if you're like, oh, I'm a let's say, you know, like a biology major, but all I've done is music. That's fine, right? But they're looking for someone who's done music to a point where you go, wow, this person's really, really committed. That's kind of what they want to see. UC Berkeley increased by 27%, not that far behind from UCLA. They received 112,820 applications, which is just nutty. They admitted 12% this year. The admission rate to the School of Engineering at UC Berkeley this year dropped to 6%. So if you know anyone who got into EECS this year at UC Berkeley, they did something really hard. If you know anyone who got into MET this year, right, the Management and Engineering Technology, oh my God, they did something really remarkable this year, right? So, so I get certain students every year, they'll say, I'll say, where do you want to go? I want to go to Carnegie Mellon. I want to go to Caltech. I want to go to Rice. I want to go to Harvey Mudd. And I'll say, okay, that's great. So, what if it doesn't happen? If I don't get into those schools, I'll just go to UC Berkeley. You can't say that anymore, right? So they're turning into little mini Ivies, right? So just understand that LA and Berkeley have become unpredictable, just like the Ivy. It's like when you look at Ivy admissions, sometimes you go, why did he get in? Why did she not get in, right? So it's hard to kind of put a finger on why someone got in and why someone didn't. It's kind of happening in the same way at LA and Berkeley. So it's becoming a lot more unpredictable. UC Irvine admission numbers increased by 20% this year. And those days of when UC San Diego was the third most difficult college to get into in the UCs are long past. By far, Irvine is the third most difficult college to get into in the UC system. And it's not all that far behind from UC Berkeley. It really isn't, right? So they received 108,000 applications this year. They admitted about 12,000. Now we have to wait until the wait list and everything is in, but you do the math, right? So what percentage is that, right? So I think when everything is said and done, Irvine's admission rate is going to probably settle around 15 to 18% this year. We'll see when all the numbers are in. But however, this was really interesting. Almost half of applicants to UC Irvine apply to just 6 of the 85 available majors, right? Oh, someone said the slide did not move. Is this true? Can someone chat me, please, if the slides are not moving? Or is it moving now? Or if somebody can it does now. Okay, great. Oh, just a glitch. Okay. So almost half of the applicants apply to 6 of 85 available majors. They were biological sciences, business administration, nursing science, computer science, and psychology. So if you're not 100% sure these are the majors you want to go into, stay away from them, because you're going to have a hard time getting to Irvine if you're applying to one of these 6 majors, right? So Mr. Dale Lehman, however, the UC Irvine's Executive Director Undergrad Admissions, warns that students shouldn't try to game the system by applying to less selected majors because they might not be able to change them under the strict rules for doing so. UC Irvine is one of those especially unique UCs where the number of colleges that UC Irvine has under the university is very, very numerous. It's many. So switching between majors that are not in the same college can be uniquely difficult at UC Irvine. So if you are planning to apply to Irvine, but you want to go into like computer science, but you're like, it's hard, I'm going to apply as like a philosophy major, and then I'm going to switch. You might find that to be very, very difficult at Irvine. So just be mindful of what you are doing when you select your majors when that time comes. And then look, just to reiterate this point, I'm not sure if this is true at Irvine, but at UC San Diego, if you apply to UC San Diego as a non-engineering student and you want to switch into engineering, so School of Engineering has these classes that you have to take. I think there's like 6 of them, or 7 of them. You take them, and then if you meet the minimum requirement, you can apply to switch into the School of Engineering. But the way that San Diego does this is really weird. So what it is let's say at a given year, there was 100 students who qualified, but there's only 30 spaces available. What UC San Diego does is they do not award the top 30 students into the School of Engineering. They look at the 100 students who met all the minimum requirements and they say, these students are all qualified. and they lottery the 30 spaces. So they do a lottery, and then you just got to get lucky to get in. So even if you meet the minimum requirements, or if you met it like just far surpassing everyone else, it doesn't mean anything, because once you get to that switching process, it's a lottery, right? They do this because they want to make sure that they're fair and that they are being transparent. But once again, like, Mr. Lehman says at UC Irvine, that be careful, right? So it's not a guarantee that you can switch into the major that you want later on. UC Santa Barbara increased by 16%. They received 105,000 applications. Readers were told, so the admission readers were told to look for applicants that were active, engaged learners who involve themselves in their school and community. So once again, the theme is very, very similar. They're looking for people that are going to be, passionate and active in the things that they do. Ms. Preskoff, the UC Santa Barbara Director of Admission, says they're looking for evidence of sustained passion. Did they take 4 years of a subject rather than just the required 2? Did they join related clubs or summer programs, right? So you can kind of see a pattern emerging from all the UCs. UC Santa Barbara, like many UCs and CSU this year, look, I'm sorry. So if you're a senior right now, you're watching this and you're like, I was waitlisted at Santa Barbara, don't hold out hope. Be hopeful, but don't depend on it. Santa Barbara put 14,000 students on the wait list this year. 14,000. How many are they going to take off that wait list? I don't know. What, maybe 50, maybe 100 at most? So it's, so getting off the wait list this year at most UCs are going to be very, very difficult. So I just wanted to share some examples of what happened with my students this year. So this is student number 1. So it was amusing. So I got an email from the student saying, "Oh, Henry, all my decisions are in. I got into Brown, Cornell, and he goes, I got into Brown, Cornell, UC San Diego, and Emory, and things like that." And then I emailed him back, and I was like, "What happened with LA and Berkeley?" He's like, "I got rejected at LA, and I got waitlisted at Berkeley," and he put LOL, right? So how do you get into Brown and Cornell but not get into LA and Berkeley? So this happened quite a lot this year, right? So student number 2, admitted to LA, UC Berkeley, but rejected from Cal Poly SLO. I can't explain it because Cal State applications have no essays, there's no activities, there's nothing. You just put in your GPA, you put in your AP scores, and that's pretty much it. And this was a perfect, he was the salutatorian of his high school, number 2, straight A student, and got rejected. He wasn't waitlisted as SLO, but was flat out rejected from SLO. I would really almost venture to say that Cal Poly SLO is yield protecting, but I don't know. We'll have to see. But that happened a lot this year. Student number 3. So this is the scariest one. So he had a 4.6 weighted GPA. He took 11 AP exams. This is by the time he applied. So he took more in his senior year. I think he ended with 15. Very active student, computer science major, male, Asian. He was rejected out of 6 out of 7 UC campuses he applied to. He was only admitted to UC Riverside and was rejected at Cal Poly SLO. Not to scare all of you, but this basically means, what is the one thing I can do to increase my chances? Apply to more schools. All right, so this is just, I don't know, maybe this is going to be the advice I give moving forward, but at least for this year, apply to as many schools as you can to increase your chances. Okay, so I did have some students last year that picked and choose. They applied to like 6, 8 schools. And some of them were lucky that they got into the schools that they wanted to, but a handful of them were really, they ended up with no choices. They have to go to this school, right? So apply to as many colleges as you possibly can. How does taking AP classes but not taking the AP exams look? For this year, try to take as many AP exams as you can. I think having more relevant scores is going to be it's going to be more of a powerful statement. How will colleges view GPA since it's so non-standard? Some schools are easier, some schools are easier than others. Most colleges now use a holistic review, meaning that they will look at your GPA in the context of your school. So it's not a matter of it's non-standardized. You just need to stand out at your high school, right? So if your school offers, let's say 20 AP classes and you took 2, it doesn't look very good. But if your school only offers 5 AP classes and you took 3, then that looks fine, right? So, and look, as a high school student, you know the quality of the school that you go to. You know how competitive your classmates are, right? So is your GPA competitive in that context? That's what they're going to be looking at, right? And then, when colleges say it's optional, does it really mean optional? No, right? So if the more competitive the school, the more true this is. Translate optional as strongly optional or required, right? So if they ask you to do this, but it's optional and you do it, it looks better. And if enough kids are doing it, then it becomes almost required. UC's cap at 8 bonus points or weighted points. Why take more APs? Once again, they will look at the number of AP classes you're taking and compare you with the other students that are applying from your high school. So the more, the better. But once again, while maintaining a competitive GPA. So you don't want to just overburden yourself with APs and just get B's and C's in all of these. That's not going to help, right? So you need to be wise. Do students have to prepare differently applying to selective non-UCs versus UCs? So in the past, I would have said, yeah, if you want to apply to, let's say Dartmouth or Brown, your preparation would have to have been a little bit different than if you had to prepare for LA and Berkeley, but not anymore. I would say that, like I say, UCs, some of the UCs, not all of them, but many of the UCs have become so competitive. They're like little mini Ivies. So you have to prepare accordingly. Do I need to take the SATs or ACTs anymore? Once again, UCs, Cal States, no. If you're applying to non-UC colleges, then a high score can definitely help. Like I said, 65% of UPenn students applied with SAT, ACT scores this year, but 87% of these 87% of the admitted students were out of that 65% pool. So you connect the dots, right? So what do I do if my main target is UCs? So this is what I want to do. I want to go to a UC school. What do I need to do? You need to make sure that you protect your GPA and make your transcript interesting and as focused as possible. This is going to be true for all schools, obviously. You need to concentrate on your AP exams. Focus your activities, especially if you're STEM, and UCs really, really, really value leadership, right? So as you know, UCs are very large universities. Students that tend to stand out in these type of environments where there's just a mountain of students and there's a lot of competition are ones that tends to be active, right? And if you're active in high school, you tend to kind of percolate to the top and you end up having leadership activities, right? So they're kind of looking for that, right? So someone who has been passionate, who's led others. So pursue leadership. Don't just participate wholly. Look for unique angles to help you stand out. Remember, UCs do not accept letters of recommendation unless, so your activities need to speak for themselves and they don't have interviews, right? So when you apply to UCs, your activities kind of needs to tell a story of its own, right? And of course, you can use the essays to kind of stitch them together so they don't miss it, but the activities kind of need to speak volumes. That's what you kind of need to do for UCs. What do I need to do if I want to apply to Caltech, MIT, CMU, and Georgia Tech? So I put this up here because I swear half of my students that I see every year, I go, what do you want to major in? Computer science. What do you want to major in? Computer engineering. So it's really common that they want to go to these schools. So Caltech and MIT behaves very differently than, let's say, a Harvard or a Princeton or a Stanford or let's say, like a Williams, for example, right? So if you want to get into these STEM-specific colleges, you need to do well in your GPA, once again, and you have to do well in your SATs and ACTs. A high score will definitely help. Your APs, you need to ace them, especially in math and science. If you got a 3 on European history, US history, that's potentially okay, but you better not be getting 3s on AP Calc, right? So focus your activities towards your major. So this is one of those types of schools where your activities needs to be, if you're computer engineering, it needs to be computer engineering related, right? Caltech schools like Harvey-Mudd offers like 6 different majors: biology, chemistry, physics, math, computer science, and that's all they offer. So they want to see students who are passionate about the study that they're going to be doing in school. Academic competitions like American Math Competition, Science Olympiad, USACO, United States of America Computer Olympiad. And if you worked in a lab and you're able to do a preprint, or you were able to get a peer review, publication through where you are a contributor, that really, really helps, right? Become an expert in your field. So whether you are, whether you become an engineer or whatever, I know that as a high school student, it's really difficult to do so, but your experiences when you write them as an 18, 17, 16-year-old should help you stand out, where they go, wow, this kid's really, really, really good at this, right? And create a strong base of recommendations to match your activities. And that's going to be very, very important. And prepare and submit additional information. So these are schools that will allow you to submit, research paper abstracts, the actual research paper itself. Some of these schools will accept music supplements, art supplements. If they allow them, and if you're capable, submit them all, right? Now, there's a caveat, right? So I've asked students to go, oh man, this school accepts art supplements. Should I send them? And I go, well, what art have you done? And they're like, not much. And so I'll say, let me see it. You can't submit this, right? You can't draw. You can't even draw circles. So more is better if they're of quality, right? So, and then how about these top 20 schools that's not, let's say, major specific, like a Caltech, right? So obviously GPA needs to be near perfect or perfect. A-sure standardized test, more the better. Focus your activities on leadership and making the greatest possible impact, right? Not just 3 or 4 kids or 3 or 4 classmates, but 3,000 or 4,000 people, right? That's kind of what they're looking for, right? Concentrate on creating a unique storyline. I'm a researcher, I'm an entrepreneur, I'm an educator, I'm a musician, artist, environmentalist, right? So when I read your resume, I go, wow, he's an entrepreneur. Wow, he's a terrific musician. Wow, he's gonna change he's gonna go on and be, like the next who's a famous environmentalist? I don't know, right? So he's an environmentalist, and that unique storyline is what these colleges are looking for, right? So these colleges have many different components, from music supplements to 2-minute YouTube videos, to pure, recommendation letters. Figure out what they require early and get yourself prepared and submit as many as you can. And when they offer interviews, it's a must. Interviews are not optional if they offer it, right? If they don't offer it, that's fine. But if they offer it, you should do it. So what can I do to be better prepared? Plan. Success does not happen by accident, right? Figure out what you want to study and where you wish to attend as early as possible. Then you can start kind of tailoring your activities towards that direction. Figure out how to achieve the GPA and test scores you need. Figure out what that is, right? Organize your free time to maximize your efforts. Be active, be involved, pursue your passion to the fullest. Now, once again, this goes to the first point. You go, I don't know what my passion is. Well, then how can I pursue it to my fullest? So figuring out what you want to study and where you wish to attend is really, really important, because it gets the ball rolling, right? So I guess, every time I do this, I get emails from students like, Henry, my mom is panicking. I hate you, right? So I'm sorry. I'm just presenting truth and data. I didn't mean for your parents to get on your case and give you a hard time. So I just scared you. And so, so is there something that we can do to help, right? What can Elite do to help? We have, like Jason said at the very beginning of this presentation, there's academic options, test prep, extracurricular options, Elite college consulting. As far as outside academic options are concerned, we offer supplemental AP classes. We offer different classes in the majors that you wanna study. We offer dual enrollment college courses, and we offer different summer programs. Look, Elite is a WASC accredited institution. Everything that we offer, we provide transcripts for, and they can be used for college applications. We offer test prep. Obviously, this is how we started. If you're interested in boosting your SATs and GPA, we offer summer boot camp and things like that. Please look through this. Extracurriculars, like Jason said, we have been working night and day trying to create options for our students to participate in, right? So these are different things that we offer. Somebody asked, will you share the slide? Yes, we're gonna share the slide. So you don't have to write this stuff down. Please look through it at your leisure. LEAD is our elite version of extracurriculars. We offer workshops in data science, social media, screenwriting, photography, research proposal programs, service projects. We offer just a gauntlet of different things you can participate in. So if you're like, I have nothing to do this summer, I don't know what to do, these are very good programs to fall back onto. And then obviously, all the elite branches have directors that are very experienced. So if you need help with academic guidance, please contact your local branch and we will be more than happy to guide you and give you advice. And hopefully you'll find them to be useful. Okay, so, all right. I talked really fast. I thought it was gonna take 45 minutes, but it took an hour, I'm sorry. We have future webinars coming discussing different educational topics. If you want to know where they are, you can go to this website and you'll see the future webinars that are coming up in the weeks. You can contact us if you have any questions. Please look up your local elite branch to schedule a diagnostic test or consultation if you need it. That's the website to look up the locations. Thank you. So look, just to kind of round out this presentation, if you have questions or if you want this slide, just contact your local elite branch and say, I attended the webinar. Can you send me a slide? And we'll send you a PDF version of the slide. Okay, so it'll be made available to all the branch directors, so you can have access to what I just talked about. I hope you weren't busy writing it all down. So please access it, use it. I hope you find it to be useful. Thank you so much for joining us on a weeknight. We wanted to do it at this time because when we try to hold it on weekends, a lot of you guys are busy. So I'm very glad that so many of you guys were able to make it. Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Right now, I'm gonna do my best in the next 20 minutes to answer as many questions as I can on the Q&A and the chat, okay? All right, so there's a lot of questions here. Okay, we'll be emailing the last 2 recorded elite webinars. We're gonna be emailing you with the link to this, but I don't know about the last 2. One of the questions said, my son earned the 1560 all self-study. That's great, and feels a bit robbed that he can't show his effort on test blind schools. Any suggestions as to how he can indicate his hard effort on his application? I would not recommend that you put or you use college essay portions to highlight the SAT score. I would try to do it some other way. Another question, if I'm applying to out-of-state colleges that still require SATs, what is a good time to take it? Sophomore year, junior year, the best time to prepare and take the exam is the summer between your sophomore and your junior year. Prepare then and take it either in August or in October, right? Because that coincides with your PSAT exam that you need to take. Even though there was an increase in early applications, were the applicants as qualified as earlier years? Meaning maybe the increase in EA applicant had YOLO, you only live once attitude, since some schools were test blind. Yeah, I'm sure they got some of that, but I'm sure they also received a lot of applications that came from students who in the past might have been very hesitant in applying early because their test scores were not competitive, but everything else was. So I wouldn't necessarily categorize the increase of early applications in that manner, right? So yeah, I mean, but you can't really tell. I mean, you have to kind of be able to be in the room to be able to do so. Another question, I can only imagine the application numbers going up each year without the filter that test scores offer. What is the new filter going forward? That's a very good question. I don't know yet. I think it's more of of your activities that's going to start to matter more. So, and your essays, the way that you present it. So many good students are poor writers. It just always boggles the mind when I get someone, when I look at their resume and their transcript, I'm just blown away. Wow, this is the next Einstein. This is the next Elon Musk. And then I get their first draft of their college essays and I'm like, you wrote this? I mean, really? And I'm just blown away, right? So it's almost like they're trying not to get into schools, right? So another question, are the students compared fairly for strength of schedule and outside academic? For example, one public school might limit the APs to say 3, while a private school allows 10. That is typically the other way around. Public schools offer way more APs than private schools, but whatever. Does the public school kids have any chance of competing with private schools? Yeah, they do. So in many ways, public schools being larger than private schools, they typically have more offerings and not the other way around, right? So how will it look if a student gets a B in a subject which is important to their major? So once again, I would do everything I can so I have time to make sure that I can do well on the classes that I have, that I'm going to be studying. So if I have to sacrifice AP English so I can have more time to study AP Calc, that's what I would do. But if you get a B here and there, it's not going to kill you. So don't overreact. It's fine. Do colleges consider how rigorous the school is? Yes. So your school reputation is also very, very important. So if you're applying to, let's say, Columbia, and no one from your high school in the last 5 years has gone into Columbia, your chances are very, very low. So school reputation does also matter. I know it sucks, and you might go, that's not fair, but that's how it actually is. So that's the reality. Do you recommend for senior year concurrent enrollment at local community college or loading up on AP classes? That's a very good question. By the time that you get to your senior year, it might be very difficult to load up on AP classes or take relevant AP classes. So taking dual enrollment courses, either at a community college or through like Elite, it might not be a bad idea because you can choose classes that might be more relevant to the things that you want to study because there's more offerings. The Anza College offers dual enrollment, but course I'm interested in doesn't improve college credit. If they don't approve, do not take dual enrollment courses that are not college approved or does not give credit. That is, I think, honestly, a waste of time. You might just take a Coursera course. What's the difference, right? So how valuable are summer internships on your application? They are. If you can get them, I would recommend that you do it. My son is the first generation student in US. I did my graduate. So even though your son is technically first generation in US, if you did graduate studies in India, he's not considered first generation. Of course not. If I get a low score, a 2 in AP, can we retake the AP side again? If you could, but remember, AP exams are only given once a year in May, right? So you would have to wait a whole year. And I don't know how much of it you're going to remember. It says if I take another like a Elite summer session, yeah, you could, but then summer session ends in August. You would have to retain that information all the way to May. So I don't know if that's realistic or not. Should I involve my parents in the college application process? I'm not going to answer that question. That is completely up to you, right? So I don't want to say yes and then you hate me. I don't want to say no and your parents hate me. You get along, do it. If you don't, I don't know. So you figure that out, right? So I thought that UCs did not take letters of recommendations. Yeah, they don't. I thought that yeah, they don't. And letters of recommendations at UCs typically come from UCL and UC Berkeley, and they're only by invitation only. So you don't submit it with your application. Do colleges look at gender as a factor in admissions? Yeah, in sometimes, right, at some schools. If you apply to Caltech being 67% male, if you're a female student and you apply into one of their male-centric, let's say majors, yeah, I'm sure you're going to have an advantage if that is the case, right? If you get a bad AP scores, can you hide it? So this is a very tricky question. It depends on where you apply. You can technically hide it if you're applying to the UCs, but some schools will want you to submit your AP scores. It's tricky. So it's not a uniform answer. Just know, unlike your SATs and ACTs, you cannot hide AP scores. When you submit your AP scores, the College Board website will automatically select all of your AP scores and you cannot deselect them. right? So, however, if the colleges want you to submit your AP scores in July, then it's not a big deal. So what if they seal 2, right? It's not going to hurt you then. But if they want it earlier, so it all depends on where you're applying, right? One of those students may be overqualified for Cal Poly SLO. That's what I mean by yield protect. Some schools will protect their yield by not admitting students they know that's not going to come. I've never known Cal Poly SLO to do this. I've never known any Cal States to do this, but it honestly looks like that's what they're doing this year. So we'll see. Perhaps the discrepancy in admission for your students was based on major they applied under the particular schools. Yeah, it could be. I mean, some majors are more difficult, but it wasn't just me. It was just all across the board. So if you apply to as many schools as you can, and if everyone does that, does that decrease the overall admission rate for the schools? Yeah, I guess technically, but you'll be surprised. Not everyone is going to be doing that. Is your high school ranking important? If your school ranks, yes. Hopefully your school doesn't rank. I personally believe ranking high school students is the most asinine thing that you can do. Can you imagine if you have straight A's and you're taking AP classes that you don't want, and you're not taking courses you do want because you're afraid that it's going to hurt your GPA and therefore hurt your class ranking? That sucks, right? But that's what happens when schools rank. How does it look to take dual enrollment classes at a community college? Yeah, it looks great. If you can find something you like, I would definitely recommend that you do that. Do colleges look at PSAT scores? No. Being a national merit help in admissions? No. Getting merit scholarships? Yeah, I mean, national merit is going to help you to get the scholarships, and if you have other merit scholarships, it will definitely help. How does a 4 look on an AP exam? That looks great. 4 is fine. 4 and 5s are good, right? So if I have a 1500 to 1550 on the SAT, should I still take the ACT in summer? It depends on where you want to go. And it depends on what you mean by 15 to 1550. 1500 and 1550 are not the same. So it depends. So I would really talk to a director to get a more clear answer. Well, the college classes equivalent to AP classes? Yeah, they're weighted, right? So how much do you think pursuing college courses in mathematics, especially upper division courses, will help in boosting applications to schools such as Caltech and MIT? So if you're able to take Calc 3 and linear algebra in your let's say junior year, or you take it in your senior year, it could help. If you take the SATs, what is the best time? I think I answered that. My daughter has 35 a super score ACT and got waitlisted at UC Santa Barbara. She committed to computer science at ASU in the Barrett Honors College. Tough year. Yeah, it really was. I mean, yeah, it really was a tough year. Is there any changes to PSAT? Not that I'm aware of. Should I retake 1490 if I'm planning to apply to Brown? Yeah. What's the negative? Right? If you have a 1490, you take it, you score lower, then just submit the 1490 and you can hide the lower score. You score higher, then you use the higher score. So there's only, I mean, the only negative is you lose a Saturday, right? And you might have to prepare a little bit, but yeah, I would definitely do it. When would you suggest to take the SAT if you're a rising senior? I would say August, October. Take it as early as you can, as many times as you can. If virtual is an option, I won't need to take the class with specific location. Yeah, exactly, right? How many colleges one should apply in generally specific? If you're a CS major, I would apply to at least, I would say 15, right? What are charges for consultation? I would say contact your local branch and see what they offer. All the elite branches operate slightly differently. Become an expert in your field, hard to digest. What will college teach an expert? Exactly. I know. As I utter some of these phrases, I want to kind of slap myself, but it's here. Look, this is the reality. So I get students like they'll complain about, this is unfair, and this is not right. And then when I ask them and I go, where do you want to go to school? And their next words that come out of their mouths is Stanford and Yale, right? So you cannot complain about the difficulty of the application process when you tell me you want to go to Yale and Stanford. Right? It comes with the territory. So if you find that type of restrictions or that type of demand hard to swallow, then you need to readjust your college list, right? So, and And there's many colleges, right? So it's horrible, but that's the reality of what you're looking at, right? So if the school has 5K students, but they have a magnet program of 100 kids, which is different curriculum within the school, GPA is in the context of 100 or the 5K, the 5,000, not the 100. They're not going to know about the school in that context, right? So if students wants to major in STEM, besides competition in STEM, will humanity competition help necessary? Yeah. You don't have to be just STEM based. And once again, it depends on which college you're applying to. For IB students, will it help to take college summer classes? Yeah, and for any student, it can help. If you don't pass AP exam, should you explain in the additional comments? Yes, use that section to explain why you did not pass it. And please do not blame your teacher. Okay, my teacher was horrible. Don't do that. Get some advice on how to write that. How many AP should you have taken before your senior year? That all depends on your school. How does work experience look on application? It looks great, long as it wasn't at McDonald's, right? So hopefully, not that if you're working at McDonald's is bad, but hopefully your work experience was a little bit more meaningful, right? If you take high school courses in middle school, will it affect your high school GPA? No. You'll get credit, but not the GPA. In context of my previous question, even De Anza doesn't provide college credit, but it can help increase my GPA, and therefore it will be better than doing. If it doesn't offer college credit, I'm not quite sure what it means by improving your GPA. I would reach out to a local elite director who might know more about the De Anza a little bit more thoroughly than I do, and then get some advice from that director. My kid has taken AP Calc in his or her sophomore year. So as a junior, she should be taking AP Comp Sci A or AP Stats. Will it be better to take multivariable calc through a community college? I mean, it looks better if you take multivariable, obviously, right? Because that's a continuation of your math. But once again, that all depends on how well your daughter or your son handle the AP Calc BC, right? Because obviously multivariable is a lot tougher, right? So I got a 750 in my math in the SATs. Is it a good idea to try the ACT? Yeah, why not? See what happens. Is Coursera impressive to colleges? Coursera courses are not impressive, right? But the specializations are. The Coursera specializations are accumulation of 5 different courses or 4 different courses. They take anywhere from 3 to 8 months to take. Those look impressive, but they're hard to finish. If not in school leadership, how to show UC you have leadership? I don't know. I mean, so maybe you're a president of a club or whatnot, or you lead a quartet. That's a really hard question to answer. Do National Honor Society helps? A little bit, not much. Is there a specific disadvantage to ACT Superscore? ACT Superscore is a myth. Okay, so ACT Superscore does not exist when you apply to Common App. Okay, so Common App asks for your highest composite score. So you can put math 36, reading 36, writing 36, science 36. And then they go, what is your highest composite? You have to put 34. So they're going to see that it's not a 36. So SATs are true super scores or composite scores. ACTs are kind of like a false composite score because they're going to see your highest composite. Should I focus on one certain area of academic activity if I was good at, or do multiple activities increase variety? I would always say don't do multiple, do one, but do it well, right? Is there a limit as to how many times I can take the SATs or ACT? Not really, but I wouldn't try to kill myself taking it 10 times, right? So I would typically say take it 3 times, and that's typically enough, right? Okay, I try to answer these questions as quickly as I can, but it's 7:25. I do need to end it. I'm sorry for those questions I was not able to get to. If you want answers to these, please contact your local elite directors. They're all capable. They're all experienced. They're all very caring. Please reach out to them, and I'm sure they will be able to answer your questions more individually and more specifically, and not like me answering in 5 seconds. So please reach out to them. And thank you for joining me. And I really appreciate you spending time with me today. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Henry. And thank you to everyone who joined us. This recording will be posted on our YouTube channel tomorrow if you want to get that. And like Henry said, if you want to get your hands on a PDF of the slideshow, just reach out to your local elite branch director. All right. If you're looking for some help getting through this confusing time of college admissions, let us know how we can help. We've been preparing a feast of amazing summer programs for you. Check out eliteprep.com. Thanks again, everyone. Stay safe, and we will see you next week.